Good afternoon and welcome back, everyone. Before we get started, just please ensure your device is on silent if you're in the room. And just a reminder that all sessions are being live streamed and recorded and will be available after Summit is over. If you haven't already, feel free to download the AWS Summit app using one of the QR codes on screen. And welcome to the session on application modernization and retiring tech debt with generative AI. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Bilal from AWS.
Thanks, Jovan. Hello, everyone. I think, as you heard, today's session is about tech debt. I don't know how many of you have actually checked the agenda. So as I speak, there's another session going on, like second one from on my right, where Anthropic Claude, they're talking about the innovation and the art of the possible with Gen AI. And there's another session going on, which is around agentic AI. So I'm wondering, why are you all guys here to hear about tech debt? I mean, no one wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to do tech debt today. But welcome all of you. And what I'm going to do is, I'm your neighborhood-friendly specialist solutions architect for AI ML. And I can tell you it's really hard to keep up with the pace of AI ML, just barely coping. And I'll talk about another customer who was on a very similar journey. They had a lot of tech debt. They had hundreds of applications which were running on outdated language versions, framework, with a lot of security vulnerabilities. And what did they achieve in weeks and months? So that you can apply some of those learnings and hopefully you could be sitting in that Gen AI innovation and agentic sort of sessions. Okay. So if you look at the statistics about coding, why do we code? Why do we write code? We write code because we want to build experience, engaging experience for our end customers. We write code because we want to offer some sort of value. But you as businesses go and hire really smart people, talented people, and they spend majority of their time not writing code. If you look at their day job, every day they're only spending 13% of their time writing code. So where's all that time going? So I started my career as a software engineer, so I did that for 15 years. And I still remember when I started off, one of the first things I was told to do is, here's a bunch of code, can you go ahead and patch and fix this? Can you go and port this code? There's a lot of security vulnerability, can you go and fix it? And I can tell you it's the best way to kill creativity in like a new programmer. So why is that the case? And if you have a look as how much time are we spending on scaffolding versus spending on business logic? Scaffolding like setting up infrastructure or even writing infrastructure as code, trying to do framework upgrade, language upgrade, looking for security vulnerabilities, fixing that, porting. So what we realize, if you look at the statistics, more than a third of a person's time is spent on scaffolding, where you should really be spending your time on business value-adding activities, coding to get a better experience, get a better value offering for your end customers. So that's where my customer, the local enterprise customer, one of your peers, found themselves. And what were the challenges? Why is tech debt? What exactly is tech debt? Why does it get people riled up? So if you look from a business perspective, you make choices every day in terms of your tech stack, and over time it gets dated. And typically it's quite expensive it's very time consuming and expensive to fix that. So it sort of stays as is for a while until something bad happens. Maybe there's a security vulnerability in a library that you're using which you hadn't upgraded, and all of a sudden there's an incident and you're front page news. So all of a sudden the entire business is looking at you to go and fix that. Previously, you sort of didn't have time to look into those issues. So when you look at the key impact of leaving tech debt for way too long, it impacts you from a cost perspective. It reduces your security posture. You've got more security, just because it's out of sight, it doesn't mean it's not there. And sooner or later it's going to surface up. So you've got the cost, you've got security. The other thing that is often overlooked is you get this really bright talent come in, engineering talent, and they build offering for you. With the accumulation of tech debt, they're doing undifferentiated heavy lifting. They're patching, updating language versions, updating framework versions, and they're sort of getting bogged down by that to the point where it kills all the energy and creativity that they had and the reason why they joined your corporation in the first place. And lastly, as this tech debt accumulates over time, the speed at which the organization can execute slows down, and the agility of the organization goes down quite a lot. In the FSI space, where I spend a lot of my time, the best case scenario was where this particular team took an idea to production in 6 months, and that was said, oh, this is a new achievement. So what we're seeing now is we need to do better than that. 6 months was good, it's still good, but we need to be a lot faster in terms of building those engaging experiences and building those new features that add value for your end customers. So if you go deeper into each one of them, a lot of the times we leave our applications, they have been unloved, unmanaged for very long. There's no documentation. You hire new engineers, they come in without documentation. You know, if it ain't broken, why don't fix it kind of attitude. And sometimes when they do touch something, it breaks, and then you have to have these war room meetings where you fix the break, diving catches, and the cycle continues. So this was a situation that one of my local customers, local enterprise, one of your peers found themselves, and the compelling event for them was they needed to do a data center exit. They needed to get out of their data center, and they wanted to move to cloud, and they wanted to switch off their data center, and they had hundreds of applications. And when they did an assessment of how much it's going to cost to move those applications and to the cloud, all of a sudden the security risk and compliance teams in the organization said, look, if you keep it running where it is, that's fine, but as soon as you move it, you got to fix all your versions, you got to fix all your language, you got to fix all your frameworks, you got to fix all the security vulnerabilities, so you got to have proper documentation. So all of that came to surface, and when they did the sort of a number crunching, it came out to be 200K roughly for a small application to modernize it, up to $1 million for some of the more sophisticated, complex applications. So you can see the cost factor involved if you leave tech debt for too long without addressing it. Same with security. Just because you haven't hit it yet doesn't mean that your posture is secure. You leave these libraries unpatched or to an older version, you are exposing yourself to security threats. So that's another one which can be quite significant in case there's some issue that comes up and you're in the front page, your organization is in the front page. When it comes to your people, doing repetitive work does not excite them. They want to be doing agentic AI, for example. They want to be doing, how do I apply generative AI to provide better experiences for your end customers. So that's what they want to be doing, and patching and that repetitive work doesn't really get them that excited. And what you find is, you start losing people because they don't really like repeating the same thing over and over again. Lastly, as I mentioned, your entire organization loses agility. There's a new feature, your marketing team, they go out and they find out, here's a requirement which is a really good value prop for our business. It takes very long for you to deliver on it because most of your team is trying to just manage the accumulating tech debt over time. The fact is that tech debt is not going to disappear. Every time you make a technology choice, every time you pick a tech stack, every time you write a line of code, there's going to be tech debt. So what we're trying to do is, how can we accelerate addressing of, how do we constantly keep moving to a new stack, to a new solution, to a new library in a lot faster manner than what we have today. Because today what happens is it's just too hard. We leave it until some compelling event happens, and then all of a sudden we have to fix this big project. You got new projects that get spun up just to retire tech debt. Typically happens when you have a compelling event like DC exit, or when you have you're migrating your workload to cloud. So now you're saying, okay, you all know this, and that's why you're here. So why am I sort of repeating the kind of situation and issues that you face? So the reason is just to, bring it to the fore and talk about the local customer that was in exactly the same situation and was able to turn it around within weeks and months. We're not talking years, within weeks and months, and seeing acceleration up to 90% in terms of the time that they saved. So how did they do that? And how is Gen AI helping? So instead of boiling the ocean, they started small. They said, okay, let's start with one problem. We've got hundreds of Java applications that are on an older version. They're on Java 8. And in order to move them to the cloud, amongst other things, we need to move them to Java 17, like a newer version, so that we pick the latest libraries, we patch all the security vulnerabilities, and so on and so forth. So that's where we have a service, and I'll try to keep the number of services I'll talk about to a minimum. So Amazon Q is one of our services. Amazon Q Developer is one of the services that we have. And what you do with this service is, you basically take your application repository, which may have one or many modules, and then you submit a job, and you go, here's my modules, 5, 10, 15, whatever number of modules. Here's my Java code, in Java 8. You submit it, and then Amazon Q would, under the covers, it is using Gen AI, it is using all the good agentic stuff. So it will take that code, it will analyze that code, it will migrate it, it will build and make sure and test it. And once it's tested, it will give you the upgraded code. So you basically have nothing to lose here. And you still have human in the loop because you just have Q running. There's two ways to trigger it. One is you can go through your IDE, whatever your favorite IDE might be, Visual Studio Code, for example. Or you can make it part of some sort of an automated pipeline where you run a script and that would submit the job, pull some code and submit the job. And then your Java code goes in, version 8, and it comes back with version 17, and you still have human in the loop to check, and then you commit it back, and you know that the code has been transformed and tested, and then you sort of commit it back into your repository. Really quick, easy way to try, simple, low-risk way to take your Java application from one version to the latest version. And how does it work? So there's a lot of work that has gone in behind the scene. And one of the key one is the knowledge database. So you can see the knowledge database here. So what we've done is, you could do this today with Gen AI, the pace that is moving. The large language model have become quite sophisticated in terms of coding and languages that they've seen. So you could try to do prompt engineering. But what we have done at AWS is taken all that learnings and made it available as a knowledge database as part of the solution, and we constantly update it. So as you submit your jobs, you are assured that you're getting the best in terms of the knowledge that we've accumulated. And this knowledge database has got things like best practices, it's got things like, typically if you've got these dependencies, how do you go and sort of fix them in a particular order? What are the typical trajectories that you see when you're moving this code from version 8 to version 17? So all those hints are already baked in, so at runtime when you submit your code, it would first build it, make sure it builds, it would then apply the knowledge, convert your code, it will just test it again. If there's some new findings, it would put it back in the knowledge so that over time it gets better and better from a language upgrade perspective, and then it'll give you the updated code. So that's typically how the process works, but from your perspective, you just submit a job through your IDE, or you submit a job using a script kind of approach, and you could, as I mentioned, your whole Java app, or it could be parts of your Java app. And whatever we release, we try it internally in AWS. So what we were able to achieve was we took 1,000 Java applications running on Java 8, and it was a team of 5 people, and within 2 days they were able to upgrade that entire application portfolio. And roughly it took 10 minutes per application, and the longest application, the most complex one, took an hour. Right? So you could see, compare that to how long would it have taken if you were to do it manually. So you'd have a team of 5 people, let's say it takes 3 days, probably takes weeks, but let's say 3 days, and then 8 hours per person, so you could see the amount of time that you've saved, which you give back to your engineers, and your talent can then go and think more around business value adding activities as opposed to undifferentiated upgrading of language versions. So that's the first one. And then you may say, okay, yeah, that's great for Java, but what we've got other languages or other framework. How can this help us? So similar approach, what we're doing with Amazon Q is we're looking for transformation that makes more sense to most of our customers. The other one that we keep hearing about is .NET. Can I take my .NET and make it cross-platform so I can run it in Linux? And I start with my, first of all, instantly I save on my licenses, and then I can go and break down my monolith into microservices, and this gives you that path of taking something which is .NET and going .NET Core or cross-platform so you can run it on Linux. Again, very similar concept. You submit your job, and on the other side you get the converted transform code coming out. You can still have human in the loop, so you still are making sure that there's no hallucination, so you review it before you go forward with the transform code. And we're going to continue this process, and we're going to find out what our customers are typically doing from a transformation perspective. Spoke about Java version upgrade, .NET to .NET Core, and then you can also see going from a VMware environment on-prem to cloud, where you quickly want to move applications across. So that's another transformation that you can again use end-to-end. And a lot of FSIs, large FSIs, or even large enterprises have got mainframes, so going from a mainframe kind of environment into something that you could run in a more commoditized hardware or commoditized infrastructure to lower your cost and increase your agility. So this is what's coming, is available, and this particular local enterprise started off with the Java upgrade, so they did a handful, and then they did 10 more, and so on. And now they're experimenting with the .NET, and the kind of applications that they have in their environment is Java, and then they have Python, and they have .NET. So those are some of the ones they're using Amazon Q. And for Python, I'll go into a little bit more detail how they managed upgrading from Python 2 to Python 3. And our customers have started to use it. And here's a customer reference where they applied it. They went from weeks, where it used to take them weeks to do the upgrade, a language version upgrade, to minutes. And you can see how they're retiring tech debt at an incredible pace, 60% faster from one of our customers using this service. And the thing about the service is a cloud service, so you don't have to install anything. You just submit a job. So it's like a really quick way of experimenting and see if it works for you. So it's like a fail fast. You try it, it works, you know the results, and you can sort of evaluate that and see what the benefit is to your business. Okay, so you're like, okay, this is great for big applications, but I want more control. I want to be more focused on certain areas in my application and have a human in the loop who's got expertise in that particular area. How do I achieve that? Again, with Amazon Q, you could sort of go at the feature level. So in natural language, you can say, this is the feature I'm trying to provide to my end customer, and then it would convert it into code for you. So it'll add that feature code for you, and then you can have a look. It might be you want to offload for test cases. So a lot of the times you may, your developer may not want to write all the test cases, all the nitty-gritty, so you can get it to just write the test cases for you. You can get it to write the documentation. You can also get a first-hand review where you have a large language model in the backend and an agentic process reviewing your code. So you could also do it more incremental using this same Amazon Q developer service. So here's another example of a customer reference where they just use it for documentation. And you can see how they got 90% speed benefit just by using this document feature in Amazon Q. So again, you don't have to go and transform your entire application. You could go and transform parts of it, or you could add new features, or you could add test cases or document. So it's up to you, what is the level of granularity that you want. Again, cloud service, so it just makes it's really simple. You do not have to go and write your own prompts, plug in your best practices, which you have to then go and accumulate. So we've done all that for you. So all those best practices are in that knowledge database. So you leverage that, and we constantly update that backend so that you can get the benefit without having to maintain your own transformation sort of stack. Okay, so what were some of the results for this local enterprise customer that I was working with? They are 6 to 9 months into this journey. And the first thing that they did was Some of the application was like really unloved and unmanaged. No one has touched it. Because they were doing a data center exit, they had to have a treatment plan for it. So the first thing that they did is they went ahead and said, using generative AI, can you add some test cases? Because there was no test cases, there was no documentation. So in order to, they were basically flying blind. The people who wrote that code had left the organization. So the first thing they did with Gen AI is, can you add some test cases? And for that, they use a service called Amazon Bedrock. So if you want to use pre-packaged service offering that I mentioned, that's Amazon Q Developer. But if you want to have more control, that's Amazon Bedrock. So they use prompts and things like that to add a bunch of test cases. Once they had the test cases, they ran those test cases, and they got a baseline. So now you have something to compare against. They did that, they performed the transformation. They started off with Java using Amazon Q, and then they went ahead and did Python from 2 to 3 using Amazon Bedrock. Once they had that, they did the transformation, and then they ran the same test again, just to make sure that the transformation code hasn't made it any worse. Sure, it's not best because you're using Gen AI to generate test cases, and then you're using Gen AI to do the transformation, and then you're testing using the test cases that were generated using Gen AI. Not perfect, but still better than not having any starting point and trying to apply automation to the environment that you might face. So that's what they did for when they got started, and over the course of weeks and months, they achieved a lot. From a language perspective, they went from Java 8 to 17, and they saw time saving of 90%. Python was a little bit tricky. They use Amazon Bedrock and prompt engineering and RAG. They basically attached their best practices, because in their environment, their engineers had done some really specific things in their Python. They had put some pseudocode in their Python, which was then converted into normal code. And so it's a bit tricky. So what they did is, using a pattern, they attach all those best practices and conventions that they were using to do the Python conversion. And they saw 30 to 40% improvement in terms of time spent to upgrade Python 2 to Python 3. From a security vulnerability perspective, again, they ran a security scanner on their code, and they found issues, and then they got Amazon Bedrock to fix those issues in the code. And again, they saw benefits of around 50% in terms of fixing that, how much time savings they had when they were using generative AI. The other thing that they did was, they had a database engine that was end of life, and they wanted to move to a Postgres database engine. And one of the first things they did is, they used Gen AI to find all the places in their application code where it was doing direct queries to their database engine. And it was able to pick 100% of those pieces of code where they're calling the database engine. And then what they did is, they converted that from direct queries to an engine that is going end of life, to a Postgres managed Aurora Postgres, which is one of our services, converted the database engine. And the next thing that they tackled after that was stored procedure call. How do we go from stored procedure calls in our databases to something that is more manageable and modern? So all of these things they did, and they saw in the range of 90% time savings when it comes to Java, all the way to 30–40% when it comes to Python, and so on. So you could see the benefits that they got by applying Gen AI, and the two key services that they used was Amazon Q Developer and Amazon Bedrock. So what if you have a really custom environment, like really custom? Can the generative AI services help you? Yes. So one of the key things that we do is, at setup time, we try to capture your enterprise unique situation. So it might be your best practices, some prompts that you've tried that gives you really good result, or it could be some checks and balances that you want to put in. So at setup time, you go and collect this knowledge that is there in your enterprise, tribal knowledge. It might be on Confluence or wiki pages. You don't have to massage it, because generative AI can read natural language, so you just have to attach it, just store it in one place, or be able to retrieve it. Once you have that, then you can use generative AI to follow that recipe, where you go, okay, here's the code that I want to transform, and give it some context, some knowledge about your specific situation, your enterprise. You give it some prompts and ask it to transform the code. Back then it was done in a more programmatic way, and now this customer is experimenting for this situation, applying an agentic approach to it to see if it comes with a better result. So that's what they're trying out right now. And where they want to go is to be able to retire tech debt, in a instantaneous manner. So they don't want to let tech debt accumulate for months and years and then have a project to then retire it. They want to do it like a cron job. So when they build these packages, so they're thinking of building these packages that take a particular piece of stack, whether that's a language or a framework or a security related issue or test cases coverage. They're building these packs, and what they want to do is run cron jobs. So it's always running on the repository. It's always finding things. When someone tries to commit a code, it runs through it and makes sure that whatever they're committing, aligns to whatever the future state they want to be. So it's like, instead of having an intervention or treatment months and years down the track, they pick it up really early on, and they use Gen AI to assist the developer as they are trying to commit code into their repository. So that's the sort of journey that they're on. This is what they're doing right now. Now, if you have a similar situation where you have applications that have got old language versions or framework, you want to go from one framework to another framework, you want to go from one database engine, which is end of life, to another one, come have a chat with AWS. We have our solutions architect. We have a programmatic way to take you from where you are to the outcome, and we have different mechanisms that we use. We make sure that you're on the journey with us, everything, you understand how the tech works. We start with deep dives. We go and do hands-on days, so you spend time understanding how some of these services work. Then we go and spend time with you over 3 days, and in your environment, in your use case, over the shoulder, we try to help you out. So we've got these mechanisms in place, and the idea is to accelerate this and talk to your friendly account solutions architect if you have one, or reach out and we can help you on this journey. And that's all I had for today. Hope that was useful, and yeah, please do reach out if you've got questions. Thank you.